but there it is. So now I can say good morning. Good morning. Yes, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world, or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. And as always, I want to welcome each and every one of you, embrace all that you bring with you to this space, all of your uniqueness, your unique beliefs and background and lifestyle and experiences, all that helps make you who you are is welcome. And that includes those, of course, who are in the room with us, as well as those who are on Zoom with us. And unfortunately, I can't welcome our streamers because our streaming system is still down due to one miserable piece of software. But we're working on it. So it's just one of those, strange things where we've uninstalled and reinstalled, and it went from saying our passkey was corrupt to saying our passkey is not recognized. So we've made some advance, but that's about it. And also want to apologize right now because we're switching our server, our host of our website, due to some other technical issues that I don't understand. We can either have our website working or our church email working. So we go back and forth. So right now, our email is not working, but our website is. And by the way, it works great. You remember how it used to lag? I mean, you go to the website, take 30 seconds to load. That's taken care of. So once we get all of the codes reset where they're supposed to be reset, we will have both. But right now, it's kind of been a juggling act. So sorry for those who've been trying to communicate via church email. Hopefully some of this is stated on our website for those who go to it for help and says, hey, we're going through some changes. Okay, so enough of the gremlin stories. I do want to formally welcome those of you who are Zooming with us this morning. It's always great to have you, and thank you so much for the past couple of weeks for recording our services, and we will try to get those from you and get them to the right person so we can get them up on our website soon as well. But who do we have today? Terry, are you hosting?
Sorry, Stephen is. Go ahead, Stephen.
Okay. Hello. Good morning, Todd.
Good morning.
Our group is increasing rapidly at the moment. We have about 16 people on Zoom, and folks are joining every minute. So I think we're still in the stage of people in the back of the sanctuary trying to find a seat in Zoom. But anyway, I think we may have some new people, and of course many of our regulars. So looks like a good group today, and I'm sure we'll have a great discussion.
Wonderful. Well, that's good. I know on the website we've encouraged folks to, since their stream is down, to try Zooming, and yeah, maybe it'll become a habit. Zooming is a wonderful way to share in the experience of the service as well as to communicate with others about it during and after. So welcome to all of you, and welcome to those who might be joining us via Zoom for the first time. It's wonderful to have you as part of our service today. So with that said, why don't we take a few minutes to greet one another?
What we can do is unmute for a few minutes and greet each other, especially if anyone is joining the Zoom group for the first time. Please let us know. Terry, can you get rid of the spotlight and so we can see everybody?
Yes, I was just trying to find the thing, but I got it.
Okay. Is anybody a first timer with the Zoom group? Just raise your hand. I don't see any hands. I see Bruce is off site.
Bruce, the UN guy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I at the Parliament of the World's Religions in Chicago, I'm going to need to leave in about 20 minutes or so, but I wanted to join for as long as I could, and then I got to go to another session.
Well, good to see you, Bruce.
Good to see you too.
Okay. Anyone else want to say a few words in the few moments that we have? Oh, Edith.
No.
See you there in Coos Bay.
Yes. I love seeing all the familiar faces Sunday mornings. I've never seen anyone in person, but it's great to see you.
Well, this is Dick Burkhart, and I met last weekend. I wasn't on Zoom here. I was at Hiroshima Day events in Ground Zero near Silverdale, and I met 6 activists from Spokane who were all veterans of peace and with Pax Christi. And you have some really good activists there, really good people.
Good.
I just attended the EUU book group over in, I think, France somewhere on Zoom. And it meets at 7 o'clock Pacific time. And I've been doing that for, geez, during the pandemic. It's been great. They read European books. And yeah, so anyways, we had a good discussion on Justine by Lawrence Durrell. So if any of you are interested, I think you could probably, find them somehow.
Mm-hmm. Ron has his hand up. Ron?
Yeah, I would just say that last weekend, Jay Kiskell came through town. He's riding a bicycle from Canada down to San Diego. And so we had a huge potluck for him. And then the next day, another big event for him before he took off on his bike again. So it was great to see him and have a great discussion.
Great.
Jay Kiskell of Used to Be UU, the fellow who wrote,
Right.
just so you all know.
Right, and he's a guy who ran for the board of the UUA 2 years ago too. Well, my big news was fighting with websites as well, with the NAUA site. The site itself is working well, but I spent a whole day trying to get the email. The latest Liberal Beacon is out, and it's got some great articles, like about 6 or 7. And I mailed it, and the system says that all 700 people got it. And then people started saying, I didn't get it. And I look on the system, yeah, you got it. It says right here, it's your email. Turns out it was Gmail. Anybody with Gmail didn't get it, but it's on the website. And I'll be quiet now. Sorry, where is...
Shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
The opening reflection is my take on the last 3 lines of Robert Frost's poem, The Road Less Traveled. 2 roads diverged in the woods, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. These last 3 lines of the Robert Frost poem have been analyzed by scholars, literary critics, readers, high schools, and students in university classes. Today, I'm offering my own thoughts as it relates to what we are going through now here at UU Church of Spokane and the UU of North America. Each one of us arrived here today, perhaps at this physical building in Spokane, after navigating our way through the city, weaving around the myriad of road improvements and other miscellaneous construction sites, and maybe crossing the river, before parking our cart or bikes in front of our building on Wish-Talks Way. Others of you may be in front of computers or TV monitors in homes, offices, living rooms, and dining rooms, and even on decks enjoying the sounds of the outdoors, hopefully not hindered by smoke or rain or heat. Maybe you are here in Spokane or elsewhere in Washington, or you're in another state or another country, but we are here together now. The path we took today collectively is one that may be one less traveled by some other UU congregations, But honestly, it feels more familiar because we're honoring the 7 clear and concise principles that brought our congregations together some 70 years ago when the Unitarians and Universalists agreed to merge. I vividly remember when I first read the 7 principles. They resonated with me, and I knew I had found my place. These principles made all the difference.
Please stand. I've got peace like a river in my soul, number 100. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul.
Okay, we are going to kindle our candles of care now for those who are most on our hearts and minds, and we're going to begin with some folks that obviously need strength like a mountain and from any other source they can right now in the world, including those in Ukraine and that region of the world that continue to suffer the devastating impacts of an unnecessary war going on there. But also, as all of us know, the shocking destruction in Hawaii and the terrible death toll that is mounting there, and all due to ignorance, because that's what global warming is due to, ignorance, ignoring a reality that some people simply did not want to face when we had time to do something about it. And that ultimately is what our religion is about, what my sermon will be about later, is the necessity of facing reality. So for those victims of ignorance everywhere who suffer its worst impacts, we kindle our candles of care. I also had an email from Tom letting me know that he and Mary Mosier were actually married on this date, August 13th, 1966, 57 years ago. Tom wrote a wonderful little note I'm going to read. He said, 13 is a lucky number for us. Our first date was Friday, February 13th, 1959, a Valentine Day dance at Mary's Middle School. Mary's first and maiden name, Moody, begin with the 13th letter of the alphabet. My last name also begins with the 13th letter of the alphabet. We have been bonded in our lifetime partnership of love and commitment, with 13 ever present in our background since that first date in 1959. So congratulations to Tom and to Mary. Let us take now a moment of silence on behalf of others that you might be thinking of, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world.
Well, the moon is broken and the sky is cracked. Come on up to the house. The only things that you can see is all that you lack. Come on up to the house. All your crying don't do you no good. Come on up to the house. Come down off the cross. We can use the wood. Come on up to the house. You gotta come on up to the house. Come on up to the house. The world is not my home. I'm just a passing through. Come on up to the house. There's no light in the tunnel, no irons in the fire. You gotta come on up to the house. And you're singing lead soprano in a junk man's choir. Come on up to the house. Does life seem nasty, brutish and short? Come on up to the house. The seas are stormy and you can't find no port. Come on up to the house. You gotta come on up to the house. Come on up to the house. The world is not my home. I'm just a passing through. You gotta come on up to the house. You gotta come on up to the house.
I would say that if it weren't for the fact that Lyle Morris is going to be performing as well in a few minutes, I just say we should all just go home right now. It's like, done. Okay, that was good. Well worth it. Well worth our time. So, thank you so much, Madeline. Okay, so it's now time for our story for all ages, and I want to set this up a little bit. This is a story that I wrote several years ago and used as a children's story here during a church service, and always wanted to do something a little more creative with it. And so I've developed it into a brief video, about just under 5 minutes, with images and music and a little bit of animation, and it kind of gives a feeling of a lullaby. The music and the just subtle movement of the images, just sort of rocking back and forth. So it's kind of a rock-and-by lullaby. Having I imagine children hearing this story at night and getting sleepy and drifting off. So that's the gist of it. It's a story about a mama bear. It's called a Mama Bear and the Honey Pot. And here's the interesting thing about it. Okay, I really used it as a method of learning how to use some AI tools. So the only thing in this story that is really mine is the story. Okay, the narration is an AI voice. The music was created by an AI. The images were all created by an AI, all based on my prompts. And it was edited in Premiere Pro by myself, so I guess I edited it together as well. But it's really amazing. Almost all the artifacts in this story were created by AI. The most time-consuming part of it was taking the brief time to learn those rather simple pieces of programming you can get free online to do this kind of stuff. So really a different age, and I've trying to understand the fear of AI and that sort of stuff, and there's lots of YouTube videos out there about speculating about our doom. But when you actually go to using AI, everybody's excited. I mean, it really unleashes a level of creativity that we've not been able to do before. So with no further ado, here is the story on our big screen. So.
Once upon a time, Mama Bear was out roaming the forest in search of food to take back home to her hungry cubs. But winter was already on its way, and there wasn't much left to eat. She was about to give up when she happened upon a pot filled with golden, delicious honey. But she knew it was wrong to take things that didn't belong to her without asking, and there was no one around to ask. But she also knew it was wrong to let her cubs go hungry. She didn't know what to do, so she decided to ask her mother, Mother Nature, that is. She soon happened upon a very old stone and, after explaining the problem, she asked the stone, "What should I do?" "You should do what I would do," the stone said. "Nothing at all. By doing nothing, you can't do anything wrong." But Mama Bear didn't like the thought of doing nothing at all, knowing that her cubs would still go hungry. So she went a little further until she happened upon Grandmother Sequoia, the oldest tree in the forest, and after explaining the problem, she asked, "What should I do?" "You should do what I would do," Grandmother Sequoia said. "Stand your ground and do not be moved. You know it's wrong to take things without asking, so leave the honey pot alone. You can't go wrong following the rules." But Mama Bear still couldn't stand the thought of her cubs going hungry, so she went a little further until she came upon the mighty river. After explaining the problem, she asked, "What should I do?" "You should do what I would do," the river said. "Just go with the flow and do what everyone else is doing. You can't go wrong following common sense." But Mama Bear didn't know what everyone else would do. That's why she was asking. so she continued on until she came to the foot of Thunder Mountain. After explaining the problem, she asked, "What should I do?" "You should do what I would do," Thunder Mountain said. "You should go straight to the top and ask the highest authority." Not quite sure who the highest authority was, she climbed the mountain anyway, even though it took her all day, and it was dark by the time she reached the top. Once there, she saw the ancient stars winking down at her. After explaining the problem, she asked, "What should I do?" "You should do what you would do," the stars said. "Just as there are many stars, there's always more than one answer to life's most difficult questions. Seek as much wisdom from others as you can, but in the end, you must make your own decisions." Mama Bear liked the answer the ancient stars gave her most of all, and began to make her way back down Thunder Mountain, past the mighty river, under Grandmother Sequoia, over the stones, and back to the honeypot where she would make her own decision about what to do. But when she got there, she was relieved to find a farmer, the owner of the honeypot, there too. "All I have to do now," she thought, "is ask permission to take some of his honey back to my cubs." But the farmer didn't understand bear language. All he heard when Mama Bear spoke was what sounded like growling. "Roar, roar! Eek! Take my honey pot, but leave me alone!" the farmer shouted just before running away. Mama Bear figured the farmer must be in a hurry and tried to say thank you as he dashed away. Roar! Then she took the honey pot home to her cubs, and they were all very happy.
Nighty night.
This is a time in our service that encourages us to turn our focus inwards. Get comfortable, breathe slowly, and consider these words. From the July 2020 UU Journal Touchstones. Beloved community is not an idyllic utopia. Rather, it is a clear-eyed vision about what is possible in terms of human community, living in harmony with the rhythms of nature. As our sixth source counsels, the degree of harmony that exists is a basis for assessing the overall health of our community. This does not mean conflict-free. Rather, it is a place where we see each other, as M. Scott Peck wrote, with the soft eyes of respect instead of the harsh eyes of judgment. Reverend Tom Owen Toll writes that respect means to look at something and someone again, and then once again. He adds, mature, hardy communities tangle for impact or resultant change rather than energy or retaliatory damage. They struggle openly in order to minimize the lying and cruelty that often contaminate our communal life.
Good morning. Ain't got those blues, ain't got 'em bad. Think they just might be the worst I never, ever had. I don't walk the floor, I don't moan and cry. Well, my life is great, and you're the reason why. Well, I used to be such a sorry case. Couldn't find a smile that would have fit my face. I used to sing the blues till my well ran dry. But I changed my tune, and you're the reason why. You're the reason why I sleep so good at night. You're the reason why my future looks so bright. Ain't a cloud in the sky, and there ain't no tear in my eye. Ain't got those blues, and you're the reason why. Do 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 do, do ba do do do, ba do do do, do do, do 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 do, do ba do do do. You're the reason why I sleep so good at night. You're the reason why my future looks so bright. Ain't a cloud in the sky, ain't no tear in my eye. Ain't got those blues, and you're the reason why. Ain't got those blues that leave me cold. Well, these arms don't ache for someone to hold. Ain't feeling like, whoa, I'm fixing to die. 'Cause I've been reborn, and you're the reason why. You're the reason why I sleep so good at night. You're the reason why my future looks so bright. Ain't a cloud in the sky, ain't no tear in my eye. Ain't got those blues, and you're the reason why. Ain't got those blues, and you're the reason why.
I told you you'd be glad we didn't leave. See? Thank you so much, Lau. Always great to have you. So last Sunday, for those who were here, I delivered a sermon by John Dietrich, originally by John Dietrich, entitled Liberal Religion at the Crossroads, which he first gave nearly 100 years ago in 1924. Dietrich believed, like Christianity at large, that Unitarianism, although more open to scientific evidence than other religions, was still reluctant to give up some traditional ideas and to fully modernize its thinking. He was particularly bothered that our liberal religions still reference devotion to the fatherhood of God and to the supremacy of Jesus, suggesting that we still believed in the existence of a personal God and that the height of human morality and truth was already discovered by and culminated in the teachings of one man 2,000 years ago. Dietrich's concerns, which were shared by others at the time, led to a widespread schism in Unitarianism that has become known as the humanist debate. In 2003, Reverend William F. Schulz, a former president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, executive director of Amnesty International USA, a professor at Meadville Lombard Theological School, and a senior fellow at Harvard, an impressive set of credentials, wrote an editorial in UU World magazine entitled Our Humanist Legacy. In it, he refers to Nietzsche's infamous claim that God is dead, explaining the existentialist belief that when God is gone, faith turns to humanity. This was so for Dietrich, who was among a handful of Unitarian ministers urging our liberal religion to make the right choice at the crossroad between tradition and greater reliance upon our own human agency. Their story is the story of religious humanism, Schulz says, a religious movement that emphasized human capabilities, especially the human capacity to reason, that adopted the scientific method to search for truth, and that promoted the right of all humans to develop their full potential. It is the story of a movement that sought to construct what the Reverend John Dietrich called a religion without God, shifting the focus on religious faith from divinity to humanity. Schulz goes on to say that for more than a decade, from 1916, when Dietrich and another Unitarian colleague, Reverend Curtis Reese, began preaching humanism to their congregations through the 1920s, Unitarians debated the merits of a strictly human-centered, scientifically minded, ethically focused religion. Reese, coincidentally, Dietrich's best friend, came to Unitarianism, like me, from the Southern Baptist tradition, and even went to Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky, where I attended before deciding to leave the Southern Baptist faith and Christianity altogether. I keep having these wonderful connections to John Dietrich. So Dietrich and Reese, like many in their day, foresaw a time in the near future where religion would finally lose its influence over humanity, replaced by the knowledge achieved through sound reason and empirical evidence. Worried traditionalists saw this eventuality too, which is why some began pushing back against the coming tide, resulting in a new kind of Christianity our society had never seen before: fundamentalism. Theologian Karen Armstrong says American Protestants were the first to use it. In the early decades of the 20th century, some of them started calling themselves fundamentalist to distinguish themselves from the more liberal Protestants who were, in their opinion, entirely distorting the Christian faith. Whereas liberalism was born in reaction against superstitious and mystical thinking or mythical thinking, fundamentalism was born in reaction against liberalism. Fundamentalism was born in reaction against liberalism and the decline of religion it was leading to. And nowhere was this threat more overt than in the call of those like Dietrich, Reese, and other Unitarian ministers for a new religion of humanity, focusing on human welfare, potential, and agency, a religion in which belief in sacred scriptures, miracles, nor even in God were no longer necessary. Here it's important to remember the distinction between the philosophy formerly known as humanism, with a capital H, founded in the early 20th century by thinkers like Dietrich and Reese, as outlined in the Humanist Manifesto, and Renaissance humanism with a small h. This latter kind of humanism is simply the belief or feeling that human beings have the capacity to figure things out for themselves by exploring the natural world and making rational inferences about their findings. It is a positive belief in human nature and agency. And this was the attitude, as you've often heard me say, of the early Greek philosophers 2,600 years ago, that was rediscovered during the Renaissance, beginning in the 14th century, and that flourished during the Enlightenment well into the 18th century, resulting in a greater desire for creating societies that foster human welfare, dignity, and individual potential by guaranteeing freedom, reason, and tolerance in our societies. It should also be understood that Unitarianism, which formally emerged during the Renaissance, but is an idea that has been around since Christ, literally, is synonymous with lowercase humanism. Unitarianism is synonymous with lowercase humanism. It was the original and uncontroversial belief of his followers that Jesus was but a man whose profound teachings they further thought could change the world. Because it would have been anathema and sacrilege for any Jew to worship a human being, and all of Jesus' early followers, first followers, were Jewish, the question of his humanity would never have been questioned nor even come up. Even if they did think, like other historic Jewish figures, he had been blessed and anointed by Yahweh. It wasn't until some Gentiles, the Apostle Paul in particular, took interest in the once persecuted and exotic Jewish sect of Jesus' followers that he was transformed from being human Jesus into mythical Christ. Greeks and Romans had no issues with worshiping human beings, nor believing humans could become gods or were half divine, half human children of gods. So once Christianity, not Jesus-anity, by the way, once Christianity became the official Roman religion, a debate arose between those who believed he was merely a man and those who considered him divine. The debate was settled by the Council of Nicaea in 325 CE, when the authorities officially declared that Jesus and God were the same, marking the beginning of Trinitarian doctrine. The Trinity developed in reaction against the original Unitarian belief in one God, which excluded Jesus or anyone or anything else from also being divine. Hence, Unitarian theology was synonymous with having a humanistic Christology, the belief that Jesus was only human and could not be a God or God. As I said, Unitarianism as a religion was formally founded during the Renaissance after the Reformation caused the Roman Catholic Empire to lose some of its tight control over religious expression. That's when it was established as the official religion in Transylvania, guaranteeing religious freedom and tolerance. Unfortunately, it was short-lived due to the accidental death of Unitarian King John Sigismund Cibola, after which his Unitarian bishop, Ferenc David, was arrested and imprisoned for claiming that it made no more sense to pray to Jesus than it did to Mary, since both were mere mortals. David died in a cold, wet dungeon in the fortress of Diva only 6 months later in 1579. That was more than 1,500 years after Jesus and more than 1,300 years past the Nicene Creed, and the Unitarians were still promoting a humanistic Christology, still insisting Jesus was only human. And it was the point Dietrich was still making only 100 years ago when rejecting the lingering notion that Jesus remains superior among all men. I am too thoroughgoing an evolutionist to listen to any enthusiasm to the assertion of any unique virtue in which Jesus, which places him 2,000 years ago at the top of human achievement, he said. I believe that his moral excellence has been equaled many times, if not excelled, just as I am certain that his intellectual grasp of life and of nature, remarkable indeed for his day, has been very far surpassed by our general progress in intelligence since his time. The point of this brief history is that humanistic thinking has been part of the definition of Unitarianism since its very beginning and has remained so. Again, the name itself, Unitarianism, is synonymous with humanistic Christology. That's what the word means. The belief in Jesus' humanity. But this does not diminish Jesus in the eyes of Unitarians who initially saw their religion as no less Christian than anyone else's, and still do in Eastern Europe. Christianity was about putting his humanitarian teachings into practice for the benefit of human beings, not for stoking the ego of a primitive, punitive, authoritarian God. So given that small h humanism has been one of Unitarianism's defining theological qualities, and the positive attitude towards human beings, human agency, and human potential, as demonstrated by the life and the teachings and death of Jesus, it seems only inevitable that those like Dietrich and Rees would eventually come along, and that capital H humanism would naturally be born of Unitarianism, its genetic mother. In fact, right here in this church. When Dietrich spoke of Unitarianism's crossroad a century ago, he was not asking its adherents to adopt an entirely new ideology, only to complete what had begun more than a millennia ago. To let go of superstitious thinking entirely, particularly references to a personal God and to the supremacy of Jesus, and to fully own our own role and ability to advance human civilization and human well-being ourselves. At the time, Dietrich believed this could only happen by embracing science and subjecting all our beliefs, including especially our religious beliefs, to its findings. Back then, it seemed Unitarianism, especially in North America, was well on its way to doing so, despite the uproar stirred by Dietrich and the big H humanists who were also Unitarians. In fact, as recently as Schulz's 2000 article, most would have considered the controversy long resolved, or most have, I should say, considered the controversy long resolved in the humanists' favor. After all, he says 46% of Unitarian Universalists reported in 1998 that they regarded themselves as theologically humanist. More than twice the number who identified with the second most common perspective, nature-centered spirituality, and far more than the 13% who called themselves theist and the 9.5% who described themselves as Christians. These statistics have long been corroborated by others, including as early as 1961 when the Unitarian Universalist Association was formed. According to Michael Werner's 2013 book, Regaining Balance, The Evolution of the UUA, the 1961 UUA Preliminary Reports of the Commission of the Free Church in a Changing World concluded that with only 2.9% of UUs believing in a supernatural being and 52% believing in explicit humanism, that the Unitarian Universalist Association should seek to build the newly merged association on an evolving progressive scientific basis. Jump ahead 44 years later to a 2005 Commission on Appraisal report entitled Engaging Our Theological Diversity that asked UU participants, what holds us together? Right. I mean, imagine the question in and of itself that we now have to ask what it is we're about. Right, 44 years later, after this association formed, we're asking ourselves, what are we about? Anybody know? Let's do a survey. The responses varied enough to make us wonder if any of the participants had any idea what our religion is supposed to be about. Hence, the report concludes that despite consensus within the church that the liberal religious message of Unitarian Universalism is important in this troubled world, we find it difficult to articulate that message clearly. We know we're important, we just don't know why. This identity crisis, as I argue in the Gadfly papers, is the result of a poorly handled merger that immediately severed us from our historic liberal religious roots with no process for explaining what this new religion called Unitarian Universalism was about. We too frequently behave as though Unitarian Universalism was born without historical or theological antecedents. Walter P. Hertz wrote in his 1999 Skinner House publication, Redeeming Time, "We will continue to ignore our past only at the peril of losing our identity as a religious people." Today, anyone paying attention must conclude this is precisely what has happened. It's as if we came to the crossroad Dietrich pointed out, started down the right path, but then turned around and went back in the other direction, toward authoritarianism and dogmatism and an explicit rejection of humanism, reason, science, and the inconvenient truths they often lead to. The identity crisis prompted by the merger created an ever-widening vacuum that ethically immature and irrational opportunists filled with nonsense before any of us realized what was happening. In his article, William Schultz also says, "The truth is that a lot of nonsense passes for religion in the 21st century, and it has in all the preceding centuries. Religious humanism is willing to call a charlatan a charlatan. And while reason is by no means the only vehicle of religious exploration, we abandon it altogether only at our peril." Yet abandoning it, we have. As evidenced by 2 letters of condemnation written in response to the Gadfly papers. Less than a day after I began giving the book away in 2019, an open letter signed initially by over 300 UU ministers and eventually by more than 500 explicitly stated, "We recognize that a zealous commitment to logic and reason over all other forms of knowing is one of the foundational stones of white supremacy culture." In this chilling claim, logic and reason, once the cornerstones of our liberal religion, are nullified as white supremacy and deemed inferior to an unspecified other forms of knowing. What could they be? Faith? Feeling? Instinct? The other letter came only a month later in the form of a letter of censure to me from the UU Ministers Association. It similarly said, "We cannot ignore the fact that logic has often been employed in white supremacy culture to stifle dissent, minimize expressions of harm, and to require those who suffer to prove the harm by the culture's standards. If reason stifles dissent, it is only the fault of those afraid of appearing foolish by arguing against it, or of having their own beliefs disproven by engaging in rational debate." And of course, where logic is expected, any claim is expected to be based on sound evidence. Sound reason can't minimize or erase such evidence. On the contrary, reason depends upon such evidence. And this gets us to the crossroads, the other crossroads our liberal religion faces today, the choice between illogic and logic, between unreason and reason, between progress or more stagnation. Sadly, this crossroad is a step further back than the fork in the road he had reached in Dietrich's time. Now, rather than taking our rational religion a step further by fully embracing science and human agency, we must backtrack to begin reclaiming reason itself. This is tragic for our religion, which is rooted, again, in small h humanism and its belief in our ability to use reason to understand the natural world. But the crossroads we are now at is the same crossroads that the whole world is at and has been since the first creature emerged from the primordial sludge. It is the urge of life itself to become increasingly aware of its environment, which ultimately includes awareness of the entire universe, because that's our environment. In this sense, life is the universe's attempt to become self-aware. And our species, as a self-aware species, is part of its awakening. Just as infants become increasingly conscious as they better differentiate themselves from others in their environments, and adults healthier as they become more aware of their unconscious drives and habits, our task as a species is to grow beyond our unconscious drives and delusions, to face and cope with reality as it is on its own terms. This is what a mature person does, and it is what a maturing species must do. Face reality. But so far, each time our species has poked its unconscious head into the light to make brief advances toward greater enlightenment, fear and denial forces us back under. Brief but unprecedented advances followed the age of antiquity, the Renaissance, and the Enlightenment when the use of reason flourished. But each period was halted by those too frightened to go on facing reality, those who would force the rest of us to go along with the more comforting delusions contained in nonsensical myths, preposterous dogmas, and dusty old books. Doing so once led to 1,000 years of unconsciousness and stagnation during that period that we call the Dark Ages. More recently, it followed the Enlightenment, during which some who are now considered brilliant philosophers made their names assaulting the use and value of the telephone. No, the use and the value of reason. And this is what the postmodern milieu, the widespread rejection of reality in favor of whatever the hell we prefer to believe, that is now leading to the destruction of our planet, the halting of human progress, and the stunting of individual potential. This counter-enlightenment movement began in defense of faith, which required the denigration of reason. In his critique of pure reason, Immanuel Kant found errors in the use of reason. He then used them to argue that reason can never lead us to any truth or to any knowledge. I therefore found it necessary, he said, to deny knowledge to make room for faith. Philosopher Stephen Hicks says, for Kant, preserving faith led him to deny reason, while for a Hegel, preserving the spirit of Judeo-Christian metaphysics led him to be more anti-reason and anti-individualist than Kant ever was. Stephen also says the irrationalists divided over whether religion is true, Schleiermacher and Kierkegaard being theists and Schopenhauer and Nietzsche being atheists, but all shared a contempt for reason. All condemned reason as a totally artificial and limited faculty, one that must be abandoned in the bold quest to embrace reality. Perhaps Kant had prohibited access to reality, but he had shown only that reason could not get us there, that left other options open to us: faith, feeling, instinct. Indeed, these seem to be the criterion of assessing truth as promoted by the UUA Association today: faith, feeling, instinct, topped off with a desperate and irrational contempt for reason. I could continue giving such examples, but we'll begin to close. I hope I've said enough for you to see the historic pattern in which reason takes brief hold, leading to unprecedented advances, but is soon condemned as useless and evil in order to reestablish the superiority of our unconscious and superstitious beliefs. So the crossroads we face today is not new, nor does it belong exclusively to Unitarian Universalism. It is the same crossroads humanity has been striving to reach throughout our existence. Only to reach it, take a few steps in the right direction before, out of fear and ignorance, we second-guess ourselves and turn around and go backwards. Perhaps this should be expected of society in general, but our liberal religion, as we have seen, was founded upon the very principles that drive humanity forward, especially our commitment to reason and empirical evidence. Today, irrationalism is rampant, and the world is in another age of endarkenment, an age of convenient lies rather than inconvenient truths, which is why our liberal religion must not only survive, but thrive, so that we can help our fellow human beings transform their hostilities into hope, their fears into awe and wonder, and their ignorance into curiosity and courage. This is our moment. Now is when we are needed most. We have reached the crossroad. Let us choose the correct direction, and this time there's no turning back. Thank you.
Thanks. Please stand. Join me for My Life Flows On in Endless Song, number 108. My life flows on in endless song above its lamentation. I hear the real, though far off, hymn that hails a new creation. Though all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the tempest round me roars? I know the truth, it liveth. What though the darkness round me close? Songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. Since love prevails in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? when tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are winging. When friends by shame our kin defiled, how can I keep from singing?
I offer up this prayer that comes to us from the Navajo tradition. As I walk, the universe is walking with me. In beauty, it walks before me. In beauty, it walks behind me. In beauty, it walks below me. In beauty, it walks above me. Beauty is on every side. As I walk with beauty. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.
Shalom havarim, shalom havarim, shalom, shalom, shalom.